World of Warcraft is changing forever, especially in Mythic Plus. They've just posted a massive announcement with big changes that's going to impact everybody on almost every single key level. And today we're going to talk about it with a twist. This channel is all about bench warmers, all about people that don't have a lot of time to play World of Warcraft and maybe might jump on for a few hours every couple of nights to play the game. And if people want to play Mythic Plus, they're going to need to know about these changes and need to prepare because it is massively different in comparison to last season's and last expansions. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the new affix. The first thing you will notice after every +2 in the War Within is something called Zalat Bargain, which is broken down into two separate buffs: Zalat Bargain Ascendant and Zalat Bargain Frenzied. Now Ascendant is for you, Frenzied is for the enemies, and what happens is she will spawn orbs around every minute or so around the area that you're at. If you can CC all of them or as many as you possibly can, you will get a big buff to yourself, which is haste. And if you don't CC any, or if you leave some, the enemies get them, which is frenzied, and they will get a 20% flat out damage increase and a 40% haste buff. So you want to make sure that you CC as many as possible. Now I like this, however, what you may find is more classes that have AoE CCs to become more favourable in the dungeons. Now we're not going to cover which classes are best for AoE CCs, because if you have a class that has a lot of CC or a lot of AoE CC, you will be completely fine. We're not going to cover that in today's video. However, I will give my take on my little tinfoil hat suspicion about what's going to happen in the War Within. So two things that happen in the War Within which are quite big. The first one is they are introducing a massive affix which requires AoE CC in the Mythic Plus scene. Also, you've discussed about Drakthir becoming available to more classes in the War Within. Now, Drakthir's racial has two built-in AoE CCs, and it's kind of suspicious that you have something that's massive in the Mythic Plus scene, AoE CC, and a new race that you can pay to transfer over to, which has AoE CC. Kind of suspicious. But anyway, that's my tinfoil hat. We're not going to talk about that anymore. The next one is quite simple. It's called Challenger's Peril. Basically, everything after a Mythic Plus 7, if you die in your keystone, it's a flat 15-second reduction of the timer instead of 5. This is going to make it a little bit more difficult for pub groups, for bench warmers like us. But what I will say and stress to you, understand your class, understand the dungeon, understand the mechanics, make sure you aren't the hindrance to the group, and make sure your death counter is as low or as 0 as possible, and you shouldn't have a problem. What I will think might happen, healers get quite a bad rap. They always have done, sadly they always will do. Coming from a healer main, I understand that you will always get it in the neck. If you let a player die and it's a 15-second reduction, it's going to be a little bit more unforgiving. So if you have a group wipe, it is 1 minute and 15 seconds. Yeah, it's quite brutal. So you might get a bad rap, but people will get used to this and people will just move on like nothing ever happened, and that's it. But it's going to be a big change going from 5 seconds to a 15-second punishment. It may not impact us as bench warmers, we may never get that high, but just be mindful, it may happen. Anyway, moving on. The next one is starting at a keystone plus 12. A new affix replaces Zalat Bargain. At this level, she revokes all of her bargains and empowers the creatures around her for 20 seconds in health and damage. So it's a little bit more unforgiving. Now bear in mind, a plus 12 is now the equivalence of the old style plus 22, I believe. So not many people might get that high until way in the future of Mythic Plus Season 1. So you may not have this problem, and hopefully by the time we all get to that point, they may have been a little bit more forgiving with that 20% flat out damage and health buff, and we will have catalyst charges by then, and we will have probably a lot of experience about the dungeons, but we will have more gear, so it might not be as bad. This will probably impact more people that are starting out like push groups and more people that are really trying to get to the end as quickly as possible. And now we're going to talk about the biggest change, something that you've probably seen all over the forums and stuff, and a lot of people are talking about it, is Fortified and Tyrannical is changing forever. They have switched it up in the War Within, and they're going to make it a lot more difficult. And I think for pug groups and also bench warmers like us, the casual players, it's going to impact us the most, because I think coordinated groups and professional players, and after we've got a lot of experience, maybe after like week 6 or 7, this might not be a problem for us if we ever reach this high, but it's going to impact us. But starting from this, everything after +4 to +10 in a Mythic Keystone right now, nothing will change. Fortified and Tyrannical will alternate based on which week you're on. Nothing will change. They've not mentioned this, but they've not talked about a +11 in this, but I feel like they're probably going to include +11 in this category. But after +11 or +10, Once you get from keystone level plus 12 onwards, Fortified and Tyrannical is present in every single dungeon you do. Ooh, that's insane. Now bear in mind, plus 12 is the equivalent of what a plus 22 was, 21 back in the day, so us benchwarmers may never get to that level. But eventually we may dip our toes into the higher Mythic plus Keystone sort of era, sort of scene. When we get a little bit more geared and a little bit more experienced and we're not pushing like all the professionals do right now, this might not impact us for a very long time, but it will impact us nonetheless. Fortified and Tyrannical are both active. You've got Challenger's Peril straight up anyway from a plus 7, and then Zalath's Guile. So you don't have any Zalath's Bargain affix, you go straight in with the Guile, so enemies have not only Fortified and Tyrannical, but also a flat out 20% health and damage of enemies by 20%. So it's going to be incredibly difficult. It is like Mythic plus plus. And it is incredibly fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie, I'm really excited because it's going to make the difference, and it's going to show the difference between a casual player and a professional player. So they are creating a bit of a divide because only the best of the best will be able to make it from a plus 12 onwards. And you will see when people have got a really high Mythic Plus score now, you'll know that they've tackled quite a lot to get there. So it's going to bring back what the olden days was when you had gear before you could sort of transmogrify it, or whatever you call it, where you have someone with a really good heroic 25 Ice Crown Citadel gear. You're thinking, wow, they're really good players. You're going to have that with Mythic Plus score. When you've got a really high one, you know, wow, they've done a plus 12 upwards. They're a really good player. So some really big changes and something I'm really excited for. However, what I think might happen is the whole Mythic Plus meta might change. Because they're changing push weeks and they're trying to eliminate it, and they're including Fortified and Tyrannical in every single plus 12 upwards. There used to be talent changes based on what week you did, but what it might create is a static non-talent moving spec, where you don't switch anything based on which week you're in, and it won't diversify your playstyle. You'll probably have the meta spec, and that will not change throughout the entirety of Season 1. So what it might create is a bit of a divide in that sense, that classes might get a bit boring. And you will still have the meta, and you will still have this god tier groups that everyone talks about, where everything is absolutely busted. What I would like to see happen, what I'm hoping might happen, is it won't be god tier because of it's absolutely busted and it's overtuned and they do so much damage. It'll be based on which AoE CC class is available. If you have more CC, you may get picked over others. So if you're a class that doesn't have any AoE CC, you may struggle getting into groups more than even if you did more damage. But we'll see what happens. I don't know how it's going to play out. I'm going to do some more testing on the beta this weekend in some Mythic Plus and see how it plays out. But I'm really looking forward to the Zalat Bargain sort of change in that Zalat Guile, but I'm not looking forward to once I get to a plus 12 and it's just absolutely difficult. For a person who's going to play a tank next expansion, it's going to be very difficult. But what I think is going to happen is the healers will have a hard time, the tanks will have a hard time, and as a DPS player, if you don't have a lot of AoE CC, you need to make sure your class is absolutely busted in damage, because you'll probably find people will have more picks for AoE CC. But anyway, let's see what happens. Hopefully you'll see the gameplay on the screen right now and you'll like what you see. I'm going to do a lot of testing. More videos coming out soon. There's going to be more coverage of the tanks that we've not talked about. A new 0 to hero challenge on retail for a tank that I'm doing, and also maybe more. But anyway, I am Benchwarmer. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it. Sound off in the comments down below what you think about the new changes in the War Within. Hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.